Tell us about that aerial photography. It just added so much.
Well, from the beginning, I knew I needed aerial photography, but my parents, very realistically looking at the budget, said, you have no money for that. We can't do that. So the first year, we had the crane, and we were able to get one of the shots that I had in my head, which is towards the end of the movie, and it's in a lot of the trailers, where the camera's moving up on a crane, and you see the guy walk out to the edge and put his hands and look out. And that was the image I had in my head from the very start. So when we had that image, I knew the film was going to look the way I wanted.
He's got his Adirondack 46er patch on his backpack.
Absolutely. It was a very inspiring visual, but it was also one of those iconic images, which there were a few in the film that I just had to have, and that was one of them. One of the others was aerials. So in 2014, we were going about it, and I said, no, we've got to do it. No, just get a drone, just do this, just do that. And I said, no, we've got to have a helicopter. And I wanted the rigging with the camera on the front and a gimbal, and that was totally out of the question. But there's a pilot out of Fort Anne that we were able to fly with, and a cinematographer, where we took the door off the side of the helicopter, and we had the cinematographer in the back with a gimbal that rests on the seat, and I was in the front with the pilot. So the funny thing was, I was in school in Virginia at the time, and I didn't make a habit of this, but for this trip I did skip a class, hopped on a plane, flew up here, and we had a 3-day window to shoot. We were only planning to do one shoot, one sunrise. I got there on a Thursday night. Friday, it rained. Saturday, it rained. So we made a little video asking our friends, saying, hey, we're going to be out at sunrise and sunset. Please be up on some of these summits so we have people on the shots. Great, so we put that out. So Sunday morning, I got up really early. I drove up. It was a clear day. It was great. I got to Fort Anne. Forecast in Lake Placid was cloudy. We take off. We start flying up. We're going over Lake George. It's just stunning. And then we start to see the high peaks, and all I can see is a wall of clouds. And I started to get really nervous because I could just hear the money going out every time the rotor blade comes around and every shot we take. But we get up, and what happened next was just unbelievable. We came around the first wall of mountains, and suddenly it was like this ocean of clouds with a few islands, which were the summits of the mountains. And I've seen some of that in photographs. I've never seen that view of the Adirondacks on film. So we flew around, and we couldn't get close to the mountains because the wind was so high. But those are some of the most incredible, breathtaking images I've ever seen of anywhere, but especially a place that I love so dearly. And it's funny, one of my friends had commented on one of the shots. He said, that's the furthest I've ever seen in any student film, because the horizon line is so big and sweeping. And the pilot and the cinematographer, we were all just amazed by it. So we came back, and because we had had such a dud with the weather, we had scheduled sunrise and sunset for Sunday. So I drove back up at sunset. We went up, we flew around, and we just, because it was calm, we were able to get right next to the mountains and get these really stunning views with the light filtering through and creating all these cool patterns on the peaks, and the clouds started to swirl in these purples and pinks. And then we were getting dark, and we had to fly line of sight, so we couldn't use instruments to get back. So our pilot said, hey, we got to go back. I said, well, let's just make one more pass. No, the sun's gone. We got to go back. I said, just one more pass around Mount Marcy. So we were down in the shadows, and we came up, and as we come up over the clouds, the sun pops up right on the horizon of the clouds, and we get this stunning view as it's lighting all the clouds up. And then we come around Mount Marcy, and it's actually the last shot in the movie. And I knew it the moment I saw it. This is going to be the final image. And the clouds are wrapping around Marcy in this beautiful purple and pink. There's red on the mountain, and it's casting a shadow on Haystack behind it. And it's fitting, because Marcy's the tallest peak in the state. Haystack's the third tallest. And they both have a lot of meaning to me, in that Marcy was the one that I hiked that inspired me. Haystack was one that I hiked where I did dislocate my knee, but it also was one of the most challenging and fulfilling hikes, even though I didn't get that beautiful view. And I had the same sensation on both of those mountains. So it was very fitting. And it was the perfect ending image.
And as a filmmaker, to have that moment when you're like, that's my closing shot, what is that like?
Well, I'd never experienced anything like that before.
You were a young filmmaker.
I've
tasted it for the first time.
It was a euphoria I couldn't really describe elsewise. To know, even though I didn't know the whole story of the movie, even though I didn't know the whole turn it was going to take, I didn't know how long it was going to end up being aside from the television version, I didn't know the arc, but I knew where it was going to end. And that just gave me a confidence and a peace, and also an enthusiasm and an energy to push forward and finish it. Because I started to get discouraged after not finding a common thread. Well, what am I going to do? But between the aerials and our final interview a few weeks before, it all came together. And having that image and knowing this is where it's going to end, it gave me something to shoot for, because then I knew where it was going to go, even if I didn't know how I was going to get there.